The show has begun. Set your phasers to fun. You're guaranteed for a trip. Trip, trip, trip. Slip into the decon with Connor and Dom. It's the Decon Chamber.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Trekkies and Trekkers, welcome to our brand new show, the Decon Chamber. I'm your co-host, Dominic Keating. I'm joined, as always, by my dear friend, my old castmate and my fellow co-host, Mr. Connor Trinneer.
Hey-yo.
Before we get started, a little housekeeping to take care of. We want to give a big, warm-hearted, bear-hugged shout-out to our best buddy, our benefactor, in fact, our executive producer, Mr. Dave Tabb, is in the studio.
Woohoo!
Thank you, Dave. Without you, none of today would have been possible. And so, to the main event. The man sitting before me has a career spanning some 8 decades now. He truly is, in the actual sense of the word, an iconic actor of both stage and supremely screen. He is a producer, a director, a documentarian, an accomplished author, a recording artist of note, and a raconteur, frankly, to rival the likes of Wilde, Shaw, and even Twain. I could bang on, but I'm dutifully advised. I'm dutifully advised, true to form, he has a hard out for another appointment across town. There literally isn't a blade of grass that has ever grown under this man's feet. Without further ado, with so much honour and pride, I give you the Big Macker himself,
Jeez,
Mr. William Shatner.
I've got to live up to now what am I going to do?
That's
The
an
hardest
intro.
working man in show business.
Thank you for coming in. So, you just had a birthday, mate, a little belatedly. Did you let them fly by now, or did you do something of note?
Well, no, I rarely do something of note. But for the birthday, after 25,
Yeah.
I think it's after 25, you should stop celebrating, because now you're getting older. Now the muscles are beginning to fade and your balance isn't quite as good. What are you celebrating?
I know.
The other side of the hill.
The what?
The other side of the hill.
The other side of the
Yeah.
hill. No, you're looking at the end very closely.
I know, mate.
Yeah.
And
What do you know? You're young and
Well, I know you were going to
slim
say
and-
that, and I maybe.
You knew I was going to say you're young and slim?
Well, people do.
Okay.
I've getting to a certain. I know I'm definitely entering into the fourth act. I'm certainly at Act 3.5.
That's a
yes,
long play, man. I don't know whether the audience would sit through 4 acts.
No, well.
You're in the 3rd act.
I'm in the 3rd act, but
Right.
but as you say,
Are you to the denouement of the play?
I thought about you this morning. How did you get out of bed this morning? You up and at it, or I have to?
I'm going to describe to you what I did. Okay, I've got a granddaughter in England who's had a little social problem more than anything else, an administration problem with the schools she's going to,
All right.
and I was asked to help. If I made a phone call,
That was the 6 o'clock this morning
in
yes.
England.
Yes,
so,
right.
so I was up at 6 this morning to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. In as you only too well know by your
The
accent.
pubs are open.
You're right.
Yeah.
Exactly. 2 o'clock. So I got ready to make the call to London. Whereupon my daughter, who's the mother of the child, called and said it's all been handled. And I didn't need to. And she was very sorry that I had to get up at 6 o'clock. So I decided to go back to bed. And I went back to bed and I put on the news of the Trump trial, which kept me up.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so they went through all their manifestations, and then I got up about 10 o'clock, and I went to get my car, which had been eaten up by rats, but it was now repaired. So
Is
I
it one
got,
of those tasty cars that they?
Is it
that
what?
They one of those tasty cars that they like.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. The more expensive the car, the more they
More appetite for it.
they have a festivity on it. So I drove an hour out of town, an hour back, and then handled some business this morning, and then came here
You've had a busy
somewhat early.
bloody morning, mate.
Yeah. and haven't had time really to eat, except I'm looking at a
Well, don't feel,
Well, it's gigantic.
It is gigantic.
I have to be alone to eat this. Anyway, that's my early day, and now with you guys, enjoying your company. And
God bless you for coming
on
in.
to more stuff this
So you didn't
afternoon.
get to ride this morning.
I did not, but in fact, yesterday, there's a horse show with my a couple of my horses in it, being ridden by the trainer.
All right.
And I didn't want to get on because I haven't been on a horse in several weeks because of how busy I am. And I thought, no, I won't fool around.
All right.
I'll wait. So,
How many do you have? Horses.
how much money do you have in the bank? No, seriously. No. I really mean it. How much? What's your checking account? How much have you got in your checking?
It's $80,000 or $90,000.
90,000. Can I?
Are you looking to sell a horse?
I was going to say.
Sell a horse?
You don't.
Which old nag is that?
You don't ask anybody how many horses they have.
You don't?
No?
Oh, is that a non de
Those are the-
rigueur?
well, yeah.
Is it?
It's like, do you wear your jeans inside your boots or outside your boots?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
I didn't know there was a horse etiquette.
Oh, there is a horse
Oh,
etiquette. If you
yeah.
have like 10 horses, you wear them outside your boots. There's something there.
Oh.
Well,
I've long since
should I own
forgotten.
a horse?
What?
Should I ever own a horse?
Yeah, should you ever?
I will keep it private.
Right, exactly.
Do you have a favourite? Is that
can't answer that either.
No, I can answer that, but it's an interesting question. Do you have children?
No, none that I pay for, as I say facetiously often.
Oh.
But they,
I've got
Do you have
one.
children?
Yeah.
he
You got
does,
one?
yeah.
Well, what I was going to ask you was, do you have a favorite child?
All right.
So you would say, no, I like them all the same. Everybody says that.
Yeah.
But deep down, dark, the easiest child, the most affable child, the one who makes you laugh and,
Right.
and you love and loves you. And
Right.
although you wouldn't admit it, even to yourself, I think if you dug deeply,
There's an honesty there.
people they go, well, that's,
Yeah.
Dickie is a much nicer than
Debbie.
Yeah. So I do think parents have favorite children, but they can't even admit it to themselves. And that's the same way with it is with the horses. You love your horse. You love your dogs. I have 2 dogs.
You
couldn't
love
tell you.
dogs, don't you?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Espresso and macchiato, is that right?
Well, yeah.
Have one gone now?
No.
Oh,
Well,
oh.
they go about 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dobermans.
Dobermans, yeah.
Yeah. Why Dobermans? They are beautiful dogs, aren't they?
Why Dobermans? I
Was
couldn't
it
have.
the
I
omen?
couldn't. I wasn't allowed to have a dog.
No, as a
when I
kid.
when I was living with my parents.
Right.
Dirty the house and all that kind of thing. No, they bring in things. So I couldn't have a dog. But the moment I had a place of my own, the moment I got married so long ago, first thing I did was, I got to get a dog. And I saw an ad for a boxer. I thought, they're beautiful. But they have wet mouths. The saliva
The
drips.
dribble. Yeah.
We've got 2.
You got 2 boxers?
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, and a bulldog.
And a bulldog. So you're wiping their mouth all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
saliva
they're
is
just
dripping down.
God
all
forbid
over
you get dressed nicely.
Exactly. You get dressed nicely, and your beloved dog wants to say hello to you.
Exactly.
And it dribbles all over your pants.
Yeah.
And a dribble on your pants, which kind of sticky, is not too cool to go to, your wife might understand, but a stranger.
Exactly.
What is that on your pants?
On the
That's
other
right.
hand, your
You
wife
have-
might not understand.
So you have Tide wipes in the car.
Somewhere I saw a picture of a Doberman, which is very much like a boxer, but with a clean mouth.
Yeah.
And a gorgeous dog. So that began my affinity for many, many years now for Dobermans. I've shown Dobermans. I've got a Doberman champion at home.
Oh, wow.
It's they are the most beautiful dogs, and they have a dreadful reputation.
Yeah,
Unfounded.
Unfounded, isn't it? I mean, they're very friendly dogs. Yeah.
They'll lick you to death.
Yeah.
And then bite you on the throat.
It was that film. It was the film The Omen that really buggered them. Really, wasn't
Well,
it?
it's a bad publicity.
Yeah.
They need a good public relations firm, although their reputation as being killers is really good to have because untoward people looking at these two Dobermans who argue with each other a lot, never bite,
Right.
but you think they're going to kill each other, is a wonderful sound effect. So somebody coming to the house thinking, maybe and the screaming Dobermans fighting each other, look like, and somebody coming to Rob would say, if they did that to me, I'd die. So I think those two Dobermans, just by running up and down the grounds the way they do, and barking at each other, is a good.
DoorDash just leaves it and runs, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So, your first love of horses, I mean, I saw some footage of you riding barebacked on Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
My God, mate. What a hell of an athlete, mate.
I loved horses. I loved everything about horses. I loved the motion of horses. I got so entranced with Indian, Native Americans who in 1500, when the Spaniards came over in Central America, and they brought with them horses that had never been seen. The human beings on this side of the ocean had never seen a horse.
Right.
So here come the Spaniards on a few horses, and it was part of the intimidation program that Spaniards had, intimidating hundreds of thousands of Native Americans here, because in their lexicon, in their philosophy, there was something about a four-footed animal. They didn't quite know what it was. And all of a sudden, here is a human being dressed in armor and on this animal that they'd only heard about.
Right.
So it was part of the intimidation. Those animals escaped from time to time and formed herds all through America, and that was the advent of horses here. And the Native Americans picked up on those horses, and within 100 years, from 1500 to 1600, they became the greatest horse warriors.
Yeah.
Right.
What was that breed of horse that the Spaniards brought? because I'm not that
They
familiar
were
with.
probably
Were they Arabian?
no, they're an offshoot. Well, of course, Arabians are pretty much the foundation of most breeds. They were the Lipizan.
A Lipizan.
That was it. A Lipizan horse. And as all those countries, all the European countries had their own native war horse. The English with their draft horses, and French with their beautiful French. Anyway, the countries of Europe all have a native horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and offshoots from the Spaniards, Lipizan.
We should talk a bit about acting.
Well, I
don't
do
know
want to talk
anything about it.
What do you want to talk
I do
about?
want to. If you'd share the story about the way you got your first horse.
Oh, it's a
At
beautiful
the-
story.
Oh, I got horses.
You were
at
at an auction,
auction?
wasn't it?
Well,
It's a lovely story.
I had bought some. Let me go back a little, because I think that the universe is taking care of me. I'm going to have an auction of some stuff, and I didn't. I'm going to auction off some stuff that I had worn in various shows, and I'm going to do an auction. How do I do an auction? I got to itemize the things, and I don't know where and how and when, but I know I've got to have an auction. So this weekend, I went to an event, an Amish event in the middle of south of Cleveland, and this huge 200-acre place was occupied with all kinds of things built in there. Drive-in hardware. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Well, to avoid the snow, because it was upstate New York.
Oh yeah.
And they had a flea market, a huge flea market going on, and very busy, all Amish. So I get to meet the guys, and we start talking. I talk, hey, you guys do an auction? Yes, we auction all the time. I'm set up for an auction in the Amish country. I've been thinking about doing an auction for the last year. And suddenly the universe has come to me.
How about that?
Isn't that something?
Wow.
So that's what has been happening to me all my life, which includes the horses. So I buy a piece of property, and the guy says to me, what are you going to do? I said, well, you got to fence it in. He says, well, what are you going to do with it? I said, I don't know. He says, why don't you run a horse here? I said, that's a good idea. So there was an auction going on, another auction going on with the horses. So I went to the auction. totally ignorant of even an auction. And I saw somebody I knew, and I said, hi. And he says, what are you? I'm going to buy a horse. I don't know. He says, well, my son, who's 12 years old, is right over there. He knows everything about horses.
Bit of a whisperer.
Well, less training and more about bloodlines
Right.
and more about usefulness and temperament and stuff. So I go to the 12-year-old and say, hi, Philip, how are you? And he says, you're going to buy a horse? And I said, well, I'm thinking of it. And meanwhile, there's a horse being auctioned at that very moment. So really, Philip, I don't know, should I buy a horse? He says, well, that horse that's being auctioned right now is perfect for you. I said, no, I don't want his sold.
You were like,
Sold.
Wait a minute.
How
What?
about-
So I didn't know whether to be embarrassed by myself. Go, no, I don't want that horse.
Right.
Or to say, oh, to hell with it. I need a horse anyway. So I said, to
That
hell
was the
with it.
first horse.
The first horse, and that's like getting a potato chip. One potato chip? No, I don't. Yeah, okay, I'll have another potato chip.
what was that horse called? Remember?
I do remember, and I've forgotten right
That's
now
all
because
right.
you've asked me.
But
Well, that was
that
the
began
beginning.
that began a career riding horses.
Yeah.
What sort of? How old were you then? In 50, maybe
I
40?
was probably around 40.
Yes,
35.
I mean that's an age to be.
in my youth.
Yeah. God bless.
And then you got involved in the horse charity around
Well, then I
that
got
time.
involved in horses and land and breeding and training and falling in love with horses and met my wife, who's a horse trainer, and suddenly my whole life was horses.
Yeah.
Then I went to Lexington. I got that. In the meantime, I started going to horse shows, especially ones that there's a great facility here in Los Angeles that puts on horse shows all year round, every weekend. And so I was down there going to go to that horse show, Sans Horses, and I saw the most beautiful young lady, about 6 years old, on top of a horse, bareback, with no arms and one leg. And in the toes of her one leg, she had the reins,
No kidding.
and she was riding this horse.
Wow.
And most beautiful, beautiful young lady, 6-year-old. And the people who were putting on the horse show were going to stop doing the horse show because it was overwhelming them. And I said to myself at first, how many problems could there be in a horse show? I'll take over, because this beautiful kid was part of what that charity was.
This was a head. What was it called? A
No,
head.
I called it. I don't know what they called it. But I started a horse show 35 years ago
That's
called A Head with Horses.
A Head with Horses,
A
right.
Hollywood charity horse show.
yeah.
A Head with Horses is one of our charities.
Right.
And that was 35 years ago. And I would raise every year $400,000-$500,000. And you go to these major charities and they get millions of dollars. I bid $1 million. You go to those charities that enormous amounts of money are raised. 300, 400, 500,000 doesn't sound like a lot. But over 35 years,
That's a lot.
I've raised millions of
God
dollars
bless.
for children, handicapped like that young lady was, and veterans have much the same problems, emotionally and physically.
Yeah.
So the charity, Hollywood Charity Horse Show, raises money for children and veterans. And we've raised, I don't know how many millions at this point.
That's a beautiful thing you do, mate. And we're very, very happy and honoured to be a part of.
Well,
we're
I'm
coming
so
this year.
good, so glad you're back here.
God bless
You're-
Dave Tabb for he's donating quite a sizable check.
And that's that grassroots way of doing it, of saying, listen, you've got a few dollars that you're not spending right now. If you give them to me, I'll help somebody who needs it. Often I've been asked, what's your legacy? And my point is, there's no such thing as a legacy. You see the statues being torn down, the names taken off of buildings, and everything rots.
Right.
Nothing lasts. Reputations, cement, steel, it all goes.
Right.
What doesn't go is good deeds.
Yeah.
And those good deeds we do, whether it's helping an old lady across
Truly.
or helping an old man
Truly.
across the street or doing something more magnificent, that reverberates till the end of time.
And you want to be a tree.
And I want to be a
You
tree.
want to be a tree. That's a beautiful poem, beautiful song you wrote.
Thank you.
Is that in conjunction with Ben Folds, or was that part of the orchestration you did?
No. I did a performance at
the Kennedy
Center with Ben Folds, and he, to that song, played the piano.
So he listened to the Transformed Man as a young lad.
Yeah,
he picked it up.
So Ben Folds, this great musician, picks up an album that I did so many years ago that didn't fulfill its promise. Had a great premise, but it wasn't quite as good. And when I finished, it wasn't, and it was my first association with it. It wasn't as, I can't say it wasn't as good. It was a little different. In any case,
it was different. I mean,
different.
You know, I mean, it's notably
right.
It's gone down in the annals of difference.
I was fiddling around, and over the years I've been doing that with the music of language, and that's where I'm at mostly. So the songs I write with Robert Chernow are beautifully evocative songs that, doing what I do to poetry, makes music, and you have a music background.
Yeah.
And I did that at Kennedy Center, and did an album and a recording of it, a visual recording of it. So that's coming out.
It truly moved you, didn't you? I've seen one of the live performances, and the reaction from the audience was...
It was a great moment for the audience and for me, for everybody. It was a great happening. It was just, the theater can be ordinary, but it all can be incendiary. It can be, there's a moment between the audience and the actor that I can frequently get to.
I think that's why the three of us ever did this.
Right.
Ever decided to take on
so
the
you've
rigors.
had the moment where you're hearing, the audience is like pouring their soul into your soul, and you're hearing it, and there's the continuum between the actor and the audience.
The energy changes in the theater completely.
Yeah.
From one direction to a sometimes.
Yeah. I was sold out at the Apollo in London. And
big theater,
3,500 seats. Sold out on a Monday. I was touring with something, and I came into London. I was asleep Sunday night, Monday morning, and I turned on the television about noon, and Boris Johnson, who was Prime Minister then, was announcing...
Sorry about that.
No longer. You guys,
he's got a buddy.
He was flamboyant, that's for sure. And he was announcing that as of today, Monday, no more than 10 people could congregate because of COVID. And I thought...
Oh, apart from 10 Downing Street, where you could all get together and have a complete jamboree.
That's for you guys. For me, I'm having a party.
Anyway.
So I thought, my God, what's the audience going to do? Will there be anybody in the theater Monday night? And so I went to the theater, and I'm backstage, and anybody out there? I think, and I make my entrance, and 3,500 people were in the audience. Nobody had not come, and it was a moment, an unbelievable moment between the audience and me, and a great show. And I wrote a song called Monday Night in London about will they be there, and if, was that happening?
You only did that show at the Kennedy Center, right? Just the one time. You didn't really feel as though you wanted to...
Well, it's an arduous. It's an hour of songs, and it isn't melodic. It isn't like, oh, say, can you see?
Yeah.
It's like 70 pieces are playing. Ben Folds told me, because I had one rehearsal on a Thursday, and then Friday night was the show. So I had rehearsed the words at home, but there was no melodic line like, oh, say, can you see? So oh, say, can you see?
Are you in time?
Right. Are you now in time? Are you there with everybody else?
Right.
Couldn't tell. So on Friday morning, I said to the conductor, I don't know. Ben had said, playing the piano to a symphony is like being underwater. You don't know. Frequently he said, I'd be playing it. I don't know whether I'm in the same place as the orchestra.
Right.
I was the same way as a performer, as the singer, with a orchestral background of 70 pieces, but no haunting melodic line.
And everybody's looking at you.
And everybody's looking at me to perform, and I don't know where I am with the orchestra.
Terrifying.
So not only terrifying, how do you do it?
Yeah.
And the guy who might nod me in, the conductor is behind me.
You're right.
I was going to say, he's conducting the orchestra.
He's conducting the orchestra.
And
So frequently they go like that, and to the soloist they go, and then you come in. None of that. So I got the guy who wrote the orchestrations. He was there in the theater. I said, sit down front and give me a fast or a slow circle, because he had written the orchestrations for this.
He had the reserved seat, did he?
Well, so I'm performing away. I'm doing, the words, and every so often I look down. He goes, "Speed up a little or slow down a little."
Nice.
And the orchestra and I finished most songs at exactly the right time. One song, I finished the words, and the orchestra was still. The last line was, "What can we do?" And I said, "What can we do?" And the orchestra didn't stop. When I stopped, and I repeated, "What can we do?" And the orchestra stopped.
Nice.
It was just happening.
Right.
Another one of those moments in the theater that everybody stood up and cheered.
And I know your sensibility for all this is certainly it wasn't brought about, but it's certainly changed from when you went up in the Blue Origin rocket and got to see this incredible.
Well, I've been an ecologist for a long time.
You have, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, I read Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring,
Right.
and she wrote about DDT and the egg shells of all the birds thinning because of DDT.
Right.
There was the possibility that we, in our effort to get rid of insects to grow more crops, were killing all the birds, the birds,
Right.
because they were eating the insects, which ate the thing, the circle of nature and the interdependence of nature.
Yeah.
So she wrote about DDT and was instrumental in stopping DDT, which was the most effective insect. It would have taken care of all the insects, which are
Crucial.
essential, like air is essential to breathing. Insects are essential to our sustenance. I mean, they do everything.
Right.
Their mass is more more mass insects than any other thing,
Any other animal,
any other animal
creature
or,
on the
or
planet.
being on the planet. So we were well on our way to having great plants but no insects to fertilize, to colonize them. But what's the word? Getting
fertilize and
what?
To fertilize and to
fertilize them. But the word for getting the
pollinate.
pollinate, pollinate them.
For our very sustenance. And,
Right. So that she stopped that, but nature was being forfeited in other ways, and she began the movement of saving the planet. And in those many years, I've been talking about it, screaming about it, and being mocked. And what do you know? No, actor. And then what does an actor know?
Right.
It's
Most
irksome.
actors know very little.
Well put.
I've worked with a few.
Right.
What are you looking at me for?
We've earned our reputation.
Yeah.
In any case, I was, as time went on, I got more and more fervent about global warming. So this offered me an opportunity to write some songs and make a.
Well, it's a great voice to be heard, and God bless you for doing it. I mean, there was the whole aspect of the mother tree I did not know about, and
so I've done some
found that
studying on
so
trees.
moving that
It's
Incredible.
unbelievable.
Have you read
Yeah.
the Overstory?
The which?
The Overstory.
the Overstory. It's a similar book about the
are many
mycelial
books now.
network
and the Mother Tree.
And the
it's
Mother
It's
Tree.
a series of short stories and
Exactly,
vignettes.
the mother tree. So to those who don't know, there will grow a large, fertile, healthy tree that leaves its pods in the air or to the ground, depending on how it's built, and around it will grow the young trees from the mother tree. Now, I don't know whether the communication is only to the children of the tree or whether it's to all the trees around it. But trees communicate. So I knew trees communicated by pheromones. They're attacked by bugs, by beetles, and they release a pheromone downwind, and the other trees get it, and they make their sap bitter, so the bugs won't bite. Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
But more recently, they've discovered that along the mycelium of the fungi, which is a whole world 6 inches below the earth to about 2-3 feet. There's a whole world there that we don't know anything. We deal with very little.
Right.
That trees require to grow. So when they mass plant, what's the word? When they plant trees.
Yes, when they just when you just mass
clear
plant.
cut
When
and
you've
then
taken
plant
all
them
the
back
trees off the mountain,
We think we're doing
and you
a
replant
service.
trees,
Yeah.
you think you're doing good, unless you have the fungi
Yeah. Or the mother tree.
or the mother tree. But more importantly is this connection of nature,
Yeah.
underground, on the ground, and above the ground. There's this tangible event going on where the fungi is nourishing the tree. And this young girl graduating at British Columbia, I think it was British Columbia University, young girl in her early 20s, reads about it and goes to the government of British Columbia and says, the reason the trees aren't growing and you're replanting, they're very unhealthy, they die off, is because of fungi. What are you talking about? No. So they ran experiments, she was right, and a whole new way of replanting trees has taken place because of the discovery of fungi.
Paul Stamets was the chap.
Is what?
Paul Stamets is the man that sort of
How wonderful that you should know that.
did all that information about mycelial network and the fungi. That
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So they discovered that these trees are sending out chemical electrical signals along the mycelium, which is the strands that the fungi grow on. They use that as a passageway to other trees, and they send electrical signals. Our brains, along the dendrites of our brain, are sending electrochemical signals.
Same
Faster,
network,
but same network.
Same
That's how
network.
bonded we are
Yeah.
to things growing that you would plants.
It's a homogeneous network of
And
growth.
the fact that
We're
all star stuff,
tied
baby.
together.
Yeah.
We are intertwined in nature beyond anything you can imagine. Again, things I've read. So deep in the original sea, the warm oceans 3 billion years ago, there were single-celled entities in there. And the single-celled entities, large, would eat the small ones, would absorb the small ones. And the single cells became more complex because of the mitochondria that they were absorbing. The cells were cooperating, and from those cells we have evolved. So you could say that working together, planning together, cooperating, as human beings have originally in their tribes, their families and their tribes, why would they gather together when lions are a bad example, when a tiger is alone, doesn't have that familiarity, but human beings intuitively gather together. And that might be, this is my own idea, the original cell absorbed the other cells and let's cooperate.
Right.
And it's
in our DNA, as it were.
it is in our DNA.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I mean.
So how did a chap who studied business at McGill get the notion that he was going to be an actor? You know, you grew up in the West End of Montreal, quite a rough neighborhood.
Well, not rough, lower middle
class. Dad was in the schmutter business, wasn't he?
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, I know I read that he gave you his blessing, or eventually.
Well, he didn't want me to do that. I started performing when I was camp plays when I was 6 years old. It never occurred to me, and this is weird about me, or maybe other people. I mean, I haven't really examined that, but I just never thought I would do anything else.
Do you remember a moment at 6 at camp when you were on stage?
No,
and it was
I
like,
just started acting.
The click.
I made people cry and laugh, and got compliments on that. And that's good. And I started doing plays. It never occurred to me that I wouldn't do this. This was what people say they're born to do it. I was born to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You talk I read Leonard and Boldly Go Boldly.
Boldly Go is the name of the book that's out there.
Yeah. I read that, and there's
it's a great book.
It's a great book, and it's also a connection to the captains, and something that you've said, and I've wondered about this, that you speak about loneliness and how it's been a part of your life, and I wondered if there was something about being on stage or being in the theater or being in that community that did something.
I don't
to
know.
alleviate any of that.
I was torn in school, especially in high school and for a while at university, playing sports.
You were pretty sporty, weren't you?
I was, and football, but I was too small to be on the college team, and the actors that I was would work with at night or whenever would say, "What are you doing with football?" And the football players would say, "What are you doing with actors?" And it was a kind of compound. So, not being big enough to be on the college football team, I began to do everything at the university in terms of drama, whether it was the college musical, the drama department, the radio.
You got a good start on the radio, didn't you? I was listening. It was Rupert Kaplan.
Rupert Kaplan.
Yes.
How did you know that?
Oh, I read a lot.
You're doing your homework.
But he was Canadian broadcasting radio, wasn't he? Much like Radio 4 in England.
Canada. I don't know whether it's the same in the United States. I don't think it is. But Canada's the BBC, the British, the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, modeled on the BBC.
Yes. And you must have grown up with a lot of BBC influence.
Oh yeah,
yeah, for sure.
So many Englishmen had come to Canada.
Yeah.
That I was, when I went to Stratford, it was all a lot of English.
I know Olivier is one of your big heroes, of course. You know.
So what was I going to say? It never occurred to me not to be an actor.
Right.
And I had very few obstacles in my way to being a performer, and I just got lucky, or I have an innate talent, or whatever it is, or a combination of those things, that it was easy. I just floated through.
Did you train in any?
No, not really. I went to Stratford for 3 years, classical company, and they, here's your voice lesson, and I would half-heartedly do it. Right. But you had to do 10 lines on a breath. On iambic pentameter, you know that stuff, right? Yeah. So when you're younger, you take a breath. It'd start to it's born to the breach diaphragm, and you get through 10 lines. The older you get, and the less practice you do with your lungs, the harder it is.
Yeah,
and then
the rib swing becomes
exactly. So they had voice teachers there at Stratford that I half-heartedly adhered to, but not much. What I discovered later, working with some well-known Shakespearean actors from England, was that they could do it. They would talk very quickly.
Yeah.
Where I was just phrasing more slowly, I would take a phrase. I mean, why do you have to speak so quickly, get 10 lines, when you could say, once more.
Yeah.
Once more, So
and in some ways, that's where the parody of your, and people do. I know. Does it piss you off that people parody your phrasing? Because I like it.
No, I don't do what you're talking about. I will not. I don't do that. I mean, I don't think I'm doing that.
No,
in this
you're not
interview.
doing it now. No.
Right.
And even when I've watched you lately in some of the shows, I mean, I actually do similar phrasing, and it's my phrasing.
Right.
But it's me making sense of what I'm saying.
That's exactly it.
You know.
You may balance on a word.
Yeah.
You may balance on a phrase.
Yes.
You may run through the whole sentence. But rarely do you do 10 lines.
Yeah.
You know, look at me. Olivia would do,
Precisely that.
Yeah.
Go on forever,
Yeah.
and then what did he say?
Yeah.
You're not speaking in a thought.
No.
You're speaking just 10 lines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you need to speak in the thought.
Yeah.
Of course, Gielgud would say about Olivia, all that shouting.
You got
And
quite...
Olivia and Gielgud is a perfect example. We're talking about names that nobody knows but you and me.
Right.
Well, let's hope.
Well, famous,
Have you heard of the Beatles?
Famous British actors who grew up on Shakespeare. I don't know whether Shakespeare wrote those things to be done 10 lines on a breath, because the phrasing, I mean, he balances on a word frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll repeat the word.
And repeat the word.
Yes.
So there's a musicality going on.
Yeah, you can't ignore the rhetoric
And
either.
that's where I think I got my hope when I would sing a song, to use the lyric, the music of the lyric.
Right.
That's where I'm at.
Right.
Using the words, the onomatopoeia of the English language suggests that you speak in a rhythm and if you can think of the words enough in advance, you then are talking in a rhythm that sometimes seems to be staccato, but really isn't.
It's not.
Right.
No, it has beat and rhythm.
And while there, you got quite the compliment from none other than Tyrone Guthrie, one of the titans of...
Yes.
Tyrone Guthrie was a really great friend of mine.
Was he?
As close as you can get to a towering
Yeah.
personality, but
What made him such a great director? And
I wish I could say. I was so unconscious.
do you? Can you think back to those days? Can you
I
think
could
back?
visualize him now sitting
Yeah.
on the edge of a protruding stage, not unlike, perhaps exactly the same as the one in England. The audience is on 3 sides,
Yes.
Yeah.
and there's a promontory of a stage, and you dasn't not know your words because you can't get them out.
That's right.
You're out front, honey.
Where are you going to go?
But I can picture him sitting in front during rehearsal and being very, very English, but very kind. And he took me under his wing.
Do you recognize something? Yeah.
He must have.
Yeah.
He must have seen something that I didn't see. I was my ambition was. I was asked, what do you want? Way back then, I remember saying, if I could make $100 a week.
Yeah.
I think we both.
Oh, God, yeah.
I remember saying, God, if I could just, shitty cars, rented apartment, and,
Yeah, right.
and pay my bills
Exactly.
I
for
literally
the
had
rest of my days.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
a happy man.
I had the dream of...
Exactly what
Yeah.
and most actors, that's what most
Yeah.
actors come
got
to
to just
be.
have that
I wanted to be
desire.
able to afford Life cereal whenever I wanted it. I mean, that was an honest-to-God dream. I was like...
That's
It really.
yeah.
You got your big break, of course, when Chris Plummer got sick, and you go
Well,
on
that
as
was
Henry
a happy.
V.
Can you imagine? So we were in, I forgot what they call it, but rotation.
Yeah.
Where you'd,
In
rep-
repertory.
in repertory.
Yeah.
So you'd rehearse for 3-4 weeks, open that show, then you'd rehearse for another 3-4 weeks, another show, and we put into the repertoire four plays for the season. But getting to those 4 plays took half the season
Yeah.
or more. And then you would begin understudy rehearsals. So
You're playing Gloucester, aren't you, in that
I played
production?
Gloucester. I
Yeah.
forgot the name.
Yeah.
Playing the brother to Henry V.
Yeah.
And the director says, okay, Shatner, you'll understudy Chris Plummer, who was playing Henry V. Great, I'm going to.
Were you mates with him at all, with Mr. Plummer at that time? I mean,
Was I what?
Were you mates with him, or were you?
No,
in a
not mates the way you mean it. He came from Montreal. He was a couple of years ahead of me.
And he was already a bit of a star.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And he was sort of so.
Was he holding himself
Yes,
slightly above
but
the,
he had
the fray?
He had a Canadian English accent.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But a brilliant personality and actor. And so I kind of followed him through. He'd leave Ottawa, where they had a professional theater, and I'd arrive. And the same thing happened with Stratford, except that he was there for a couple of seasons when I was there. So I had to go on. 1 week into the opening of that play, we're now rehearsing the next play, he has kidney stones.
That's right.
And they say to me, "Can you go on?"
He's had kidney stones.
I've had
To
kidney
the
stones.
floor.
If I get this straight, did you pass it on stage or did you show it? There was in your book, you
No,
talk about.
I had.
You'll do anything.
I crapped in
You'll
my
do anything in
pants
front of
and
a
then-
camera, won't you?
I swear there was something about.
I crapped in my pants, but let's not talk about it.
There's some technical
Well, let's
difficulties.
forget about that.
Oh no, that'll be the finale.
So I went on
Yeah.
with no rehearsal.
You knew your lines though. You spent the time.
I went.
It's a lot of
My
lines.
book suggests
Yeah.
that the universe is taking care of me, and I think it has.
No kidding.
Just things happen. You think, oh, that's the end, and it isn't. It's a step forward. So it never occurred to me. I was asked, "Can you go on?" You know,
You just went,
there's
yeah.
2,500 people
Sure.
up there, and critics. And I said, "Yeah,"
Good for you, man.
without thinking. If I lose a word,
Yeah.
I go up. What
Right.
happens if I go up? And the stage manager's way back there. I'm like, oh, blah, blah. I mean, what kind of an idiot would you look like
Right.
if you couldn't remember the words? And why would I remember the words when I had no rehearsal? What had happened was, I went back to my little tiny 6-foot, 10-foot hovel,
The garret.
the garret that I was living in, and I began to drill the words, drill and drill and drill and drill. And the story I tell, I go to the bathroom to yell whatever the declamatory words were. I'd go in there to hide so that people wouldn't hear me. And I just drilled and drilled. There was no reason. I was months away from any rehearsal.
Right.
Do you work like that as an actor? Because I think of it like dancing the flamenco or something. It looks effortless in the end, but it takes so much rehearsal.
All the work,
It's all
for me, all the work is learning the words.
It's all the
Yeah.
words.
And
Hopkins
learning
is
them
the
so you
same.
can just, you have to go over and over it so it becomes.
Yeah. It's just second nature.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example of athletes who you see quarterback, American football.
Yeah.
They're going through a leg
Yeah.
motion
Yeah.
so that it becomes effortless.
Yeah.
So they do that day in and day out so their feet are light and they're able to move around.
Yeah.
That's the kind of lightness and ability and without thinking about it
Yeah.
that the words have to be great in a role. You can't be thinking of what's the next line.
Then you can dance.
No.
You have to it
Yeah.
has to be part of you.
Right. Really.
And the only way it becomes part of you, to one degree or another, I know an actor who's got a photographic memory who memorizes long speeches just by
Asshole.
reading.
I can't stand that.
Yeah, so that jerk. But it's a gift.
It is a
And
gift.
to me, I don't have that. I have to drill and
I
drill
drill.
and drill and
Yeah.
drill.
But it's.
But I was drilling in that time. I don't know why I was drilling. I'd go home and instead of eating, I'd be drilling the word. Boom. I
That's
had
a
to use
love
it.
of the craft and a desire to, even if you're never going to do it in front of the audience, you just know you want to do it.
Exactly.
If just for yourself.
I would even argue that, when you're young and you have an opportunity to, say, even understudy something as extraordinary as Henry V, you're going to want to take that and run with it and do the
And
work.
that's what I thought. I dimly recollect thinking, I want to do this.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me I was going to go in front of an audience. In all the years of theater that I've done, and I don't know whether that still stands, no understudy ever went on.
Right.
When was the
kidding.
last time an understudy goes on stage?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
What did Chris Plummer think? Because you got pretty good damn reviews
I got
and
good-
everything.
yeah.
There is everything he did, you did opposite.
No, that's what he said.
Now, you are now going on the stage, and I'm in the hospital. And I get a report the next day that everything I did, like if I stood up to give the speech about once more unto the breach, you sat down. If I sat down for the Crispin's Day speech, you stood up. You did everything that I did not do, just to be different and original.
Yeah.
What he didn't realize was I didn't know. What
You
he
didn't
was-
know.
I had no idea of the choreography.
You were in the dressing room.
I was the brother looking
Yeah.
around. You don't memorize somebody else's where they stand and walk and where they
You've
move.
never blocked anything of it.
Never.
have you?
I didn't know their names. I didn't know the names of the actors. That's how.
Yeah, you.
Yeah, no, you there. Was it George?
It reminds me of that lovely Peter O'Toole story when they came back from the pub from the matinee and someone said the Duke of Gloucester's drunk. Do you think the Gloucester's drunk? You want to see Clarendon when he comes on?
Let's talk about. Can we talk about the trip into space?
This is a strange fact. There are 600 people that have been into space. You're one of them. And in the last 3 weeks, you're the third one I've met. How wild is that? I just got off a cruise going down the coast of Mexico to go and see that total solar eclipse with telescope
Which
and
I did,
sky.
by the way. I did 15 minutes entertaining. I've had a whole thing.
Are you an eclipser? Are you?
Finish your story. I've got a fun.
Well, I
thing
met
to tell you.
two other astronauts, Jeffrey Hoffman, who has done a lot of work going up to the Hubble to repair that when it was in need, and a guy called Garrett Reisman, who I think it's the longest time, a year in the...
Did you have a chance to talk to them?
Yeah, but to both of them, yes, indeed. And I think Mr. Hoffman will come on the show eventually.
That'll be wonderful.
And that'll be wonderful. So I have to say, I can't believe I met three in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was the effect on me coming from all this study, reading that I had done on nature and the intertwining of nature. Everything is intertwined.
There were 4, weren't there? And God bless, I mean, there's a story behind that too. That dear man who passed away 2 weeks later.
Yes.
In a Cessna plane crash.
Yes. His name was Len DeVries.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that news alone just shook me. The randomness of life.
See, I'm a pilot.
You do fly, don't you?
I did a
You
lot.
did.
I'm not current. When he arrived in Texas, where the
launch was going
launch
from.
was
Yeah.
planned, he arrived by airplane. He was flying it himself.
Mm-hmm.
My God, that's incredible. Are you instrument rated? Which means you're looking at your instruments in fog and you can fly the plane. And he wasn't instrument rated.
No.
So if you get into any kind of weather, before the weather hits, you got to get on the ground
It's that young-
because you're blind. It's like walking.
It is.
It's like closing your eyes and walking into a strange room. You bump into things, except when you bump into that, you crash and burn.
Right.
Young Kennedy.
So he flew. He said,
Yeah.
"No, I'm not. I got to get my license. I got to get my instrument rating." Now we leave, and he flies back in this single plane. And 2 weeks later, I'm told, when you take instruction for instruments, they put a hood on you, so it feels like you're blind.
Right.
And now, so it's hood here, and you can only see your instruments. So I'm told he was under the hood. He had an instructor over here, beside him, and under the hood, and he crashed 2 weeks after he had this, and he was such a wonderful man. He was so full of life and laughter, and he had this beautiful girlfriend, and it was.
But I noted that of all of the 4 of you that were in that craft, and a lot of them were very sort of in the playground of it and in the weightlessness of it, and that didn't sort of move you nearly as much as
were
going to
sad.
the window. And
It didn't. They were so happy to have done it, congratulating, and had champagne.
Yeah.
Which they were shaking up like they had won something. And I was weeping.
You
and
wept,
I
didn't you?
I didn't know why I was crying. I was crying so deeply that I couldn't control it, and I knew there was a camera there.
I think is that part of an actor's temperament and sensibility, and I don't want to give ourselves any highfalutenness here, but I sense the same thing in me. I mean, when I go hiking in Bronson Canyon, I can't stop myself picking up the litter
But
and the
everything.
bottles.
Yes,
and
exactly. You wonder why
I
they were
can't
doing
pass by something.
And that's what's wrong with us. That's what's wrong with humanity. We have these two natures. One is to make the technology, the curiosity. Why is there a black hole? Why? Where are the stars going? Why do things fall? And we are driven to answer the questions of why. That same drive of why is destruction. And why?
Right.
It's the most amazing
The
thing.
balance is
The balance.
We're right on
our
we're
good
right
and our bad nature.
we're right on the teetering of it right now.
And it
as
was
we
the
know.
void of it all, wasn't it? That when you were looking out before you turned and saw Earth.
Well, exactly. I've done, again, like everybody else, the Webb and telescope and all the wonderful, incredible machinations of space. I'm entranced, looking, seeing.
Right.
But we've got to take care.
Well, I was going to say, when I got up there was none of that. No sun, no moon. It was all black.
Right.
It was death. Oh, my God. That's palpable.
And we're hanging here in the middle of
And then you see this little rock. It's a little rock. I have hitchhiked across the United States when I was between high school and university. I hitchhiked
yeah.
all around from Montreal to New York to San Diego to Vancouver to Chicago. For 3 months, I was on my thumb. It's endless, endless. The roads go on forever.
Yeah.
I've driven with a dog. I've driven a truck. I've driven with a baby. I've driven with a whole family. I've driven it alone. I've been back and forth across the country many, many times. It's endless,
It is.
but it's not. You look down there and you see this little rock. You can start to trace the curvature. My God, if I finished the curvature, it's
There's Arabia.
it's
There's
it's
New
crazy.
Zealand. Yeah.
That's how small. And then you realize there's only a fistful of dirt. Healthy earth,
Fertile
Essential.
earth. Yeah, we're
lush
killing-
earth
Yes.
is very rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? Then your oxygen stops at 12,500 feet. Above that, you need additional oxygen.
Yeah.
So how narrow, how thin is our life?
Yeah.
We're living on a handful of dirt, which grows crops, and we're living on a
In an
2
atmosphere
mile
that's- Yeah.
oxygenated surface.
Yeah.
How small that is.
We take a lot for granted.
Yeah.
Isn't it Earth Day today? Yeah. I believe today
And
is Earth Day.
Passover.
Well,
Happy
and
Passover, by
Happy
the way.
Passover.
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy Earth Day.
You doing anything tonight for the Seder?
My
or-
daughter is making an experience like she does each year.
Oh, nice.
One of my daughters does.
Nice.
Are you grateful that none of them went into the business? You've got a granddaughter, isn't it, that shows some promise?
Everybody has shown promise. There is my oldest granddaughter who had some troubles in London. Now it's over. She was on stage, and her father's an actor.
British actor or?
No, American actor.
So he's getting no work in England.
So not quite as good as.
And on comes his daughter on stage,
Uh-huh.
and we're looking, and we look at each other.
Oh, fuck, she's got it.
She's got the thing.
Yeah.
She's got the thing.
She's got it.
All the eyes
Is she
look-
following through with it? Or
What?
Is she
no,
following?
No. We don't want them to. I mean, it's, unless you're blessed like us,
And lucky.
Unless you have to.
Blessed.
Unless you have to.
lucky,
Yeah.
you can be the greatest talent in the world.
And we've seen
and
them.
be- Yeah, and we've seen
I've
them.
worked with some, and
Yeah,
they go nowhere.
right,
And
and
it's
nothing.
sad.
And like in every other career, when you're about 30 and you're not a good banker or you're not a good grocery salesman, and you're just hanging in there at 30, and you're thinking if you were 20, you would change occupation. You stop that. I got to get something where I can earn a living. And you're 30, middle 30s, you think, geez, I don't think I can change. I mean, I can't change now.
Yeah.
And you're locked.
All eggs, one basket.
Yeah.
All the eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
And the eggs have too much DDT.
That's, you'll be very careful with them.
It's been a real pleasure, mate.
Yeah.
Mine.
Yeah.
Really.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, and happy birthday. And gosh knows, yeah, I've got to drink a pint or whatever you're on, mate.
That's right.
You look amazing.
You do.
pal.
You look fantastic.
I can't wait. Dinner on June 1st. We'll be there for the horse show charity.
Hollywood Charity Horse
Hollywood
Show.
Charity Horse
There's
Show.
about 100 seats left, and the price is $300 and $400, but that's part of your contribution. And of course, I think it's deductible and all that.
I will be there in spirit. My son graduates from high school that day.
Great.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shatner.
Pleasure. Pleasure.